Welcome everyone, and thanks for joining me. My name is Sarah Davis and I'm with the Illinois State Museum. And different objects tell different stories, and they tell us maybe about people or a place or a time in history. Today we're going to be looking at a very special object, a pocket watch. So have you ever thought about the watch you're wearing and what story it might tell? Well, with this watch, today we have Erica Holst, Curator of History, to help us learn a little bit more about it. Well, hi Erica.
Hey Sarah, thanks for having me.
So I hear this watch has a very special story. Can you tell us a little more about it?
Yes, I absolutely can. So this is a watch that was painted by women working in Ottawa, Illinois in the 1920s. It was made by the West Clocks Company of Peru, Illinois, and the dial was painted by the Radium Dial Company of Ottawa, Illinois. The numbers on this pocket watch actually glow in the dark. And does anyone have an idea of why they glow in the dark? It's because it was painted with radium-based paint, and radium is an element that was discovered by Marie Curie in 1898. It's radioactive, which means that it gives off radiation, and it also glows. So when radium was first discovered, people thought it was a miracle element. They thought it would make them healthy. They thought it might even cure cancer. And they really liked the fact that it glowed in the dark and found it very useful, especially for making wristwatches and pocket watches. And this became especially important during World War I, when you had soldiers overseas in trenches in combat. And if they needed to check the time, they didn't want to turn on their flashlight and risk alerting their enemy to their location. So having a glowing dial on their wrist became very important. And once the soldiers started using glowing wristwatches and pocket watches, it caught on with the general public too, and there was a huge market for glow-in-the-dark pocket watches. So the Radium Dial Company in Ottawa hired local women to paint the dials on their watches, and these were considered great jobs. They paid well. Some of these women even made more money than their fathers. And radium was such a special substance that it was considered a privilege to work with it. Some of these women would even paint their fingernails, paint their lips and eyebrows before they went out on the town, and people would look at them just glowing, literally glowing as they walked down the streets, and envy them. So women were preferred workers because women were thought to be more dexterous, which means they had better control of their hands and could do finer detail. And you can see how tiny the numbers on this watch are. And so to be able to paint these tiny, tiny numbers, women would use fine-tipped paintbrushes, but just even using a fine-tipped paintbrush wasn't enough. They needed to get such a super fine point that they would literally put the tip of the brush in their mouth and twist it around, and that was called tipping the brush. Well, every time they did that, there was still a little bit of radium paint left over from the last time they had painted, and these women ended up ingesting the radium paint. And what they didn't know at the time was that that highly radioactive substance was metabolizing itself into their body, which means it was literally becoming part of their bones as they swallowed it. And all that radiation, which is very harmful to the human body, was attacking them from the inside out. So after a few years, the women at this company started to feel sick. They started to complain to their management. Their company gave them a physical and told them, everything's fine, you're all perfectly healthy, when in fact the results showed that the women were indeed being poisoned by the radium. Some women became so sick that they couldn't even work anymore, and some women even died of the radiation poisoning. And after a while, some of the women got together and decided they wanted to try to sue the company for medical bills. They weren't looking to punish anyone, they weren't looking to cause a stir, but they couldn't work and they had families to support, and they wanted fair compensation for the health that had been stolen from them. But they couldn't find a lawyer in Ottawa, Illinois, because it was a company town, and the Radium Dial Company employed a lot of people and was good for the local economy, and no one wanted to go against that. So the women actually had to go to Chicago to find a lawyer who would take their case. And their attorney ended up suing the Illinois Industrial Commission, or filing a lawsuit with the Illinois Industrial Commission to sue the Radium Dial Company. They won, and the Radium Dial Company appealed. They won, and the Radium Dial Company appealed. 8 times this went on until finally in 1939, their ruling was upheld and the women were finally awarded damages for the ill effects they'd suffered. And by that time, sadly, many of them had died. So these women themselves had their health ruined by this radium company, but they left a legacy behind that was a benefit to generations and generations of future workers. They established the rights of workers to sue companies for damages of labor abuse. They helped to set the standards for fair and safe working conditions in the workplace. They helped pass their story, their experience, helped pass laws that enhance industrial safety, and their experiences led to greater understanding of radiation's effects on the human body. So this one little watch, this one little motion made by hand long, long ago still has echoes that resonate through us today.
Thank you, Erica, for sharing that story with us. And thank you, everyone, for joining us. And I hope you learned a little bit more about how objects like this pocket watch can tell a greater history of things that have happened here.